Hey, it's Adam with Tech Dive AV Club, and we're in the new Movie Studio 17 Platinum, and this is a quick start guide to get you started editing pretty fast if you've been an editor before in another editing software. I do want to know if you are a beginner, meaning this is really one of your first times ever editing anything, I highly recommend you check out my beginner's tutorial where I go through a more step-by-step process explaining what things are, why they're there, what acronyms mean, things like that. If you're interested in a more in-depth kind of thing, please check out that link below to my beginner's tutorial. But this is a tutorial for somebody if you're coming from maybe Premiere and you've just bought Movie Studio 17 Platinum and you really just kind of want to know where the first and most commonly used buttons are to get a project done. This is the video for you. So first off, this is called Power User Mode. With Movie Studio Platinum, there are beginner modes. Now, you being a seasoned editor, you're not wanting a beginner mode. Click Power User and here you are. Here's where you are. So you can always customize everything. You can move all your windows around, and if you ever undock a window, like you take something and you move it out, that's called docking and undocking. If you take it out, you can always hold control and dock it back. Now, if you want things to get back exactly the way they were, you can just hit View and then go to Window Layouts and hit Default Layout. Now, this default layout, again, like I said, we're in Power User Mode. This default layout is something that you can get back to at all times, and it includes these windows you see here and the one I just got rid of. So these are the important windows. This is where you grab your media and effects and things like that. We're going to be talking about all of these in a second. This is your preview window, obviously, and this is your master bus where you see your audio coming through, your final project audio. These are your audio tracks. Down here you have audio and music. You can name these anything you want. You're not necessarily limited to what they say. There is a video track, a picture-in-picture track, and a text track. Now, all these are 3 video tracks that you have, but you can always add more. If you right-click and insert a video track, you can just add as many as you want. And note that the picture-in-picture track is just a track where the picture-in-picture effect is already added. I will talk about that more in a second. And your audio is the same way. You can add as many audio tracks as you want. If you have the Platinum version, that means you can add up to 200 audio tracks and 200 video tracks. That is a lot of tracks. So you should be covered as far as tracks go. So the next thing you want to do, probably the first thing you want to do, is import media. So you can actually go to the Explorer and search through your computer and find your media here. An easy way to add media is to make sure you're in the Project Media tab, right? These are different tabs. Make sure you're in the Project Media tab, and you can just grab some media and throw it right to your timeline. Vegas can use all sorts of different kinds of media. This is an XAVC clip. You can see right here all the things about it. It's 48,000 hertz stereo. It is XAVC-S as the codec. It tells you all sorts of information. It is a 4K video at 29 frames per second. I can see all that just by highlighting it. You can right click and do lots of things here. This is a lot of information. I just want you to know that you can right click and get a context menu in this window as well. If you want it on your timeline, just drag it to your video track, and here you'll see the audio comes pre-attached. And if you ever want audio not attached, if you ever have a grouping that you want to be unattached, hit this button right here, the Ignore Event Groupings, and anything that's grouped can now be ignored, and you can even delete audio like this as well. If you want to just add something in without audio or without video in the first place, an easy way to do that is just to right click and drag, and when you let go you can say video only, add video across time, or audio only, add audio across time. And if you select one of those options, you can add it without the video or the audio. Hitting Control Z lets you undo anything that you've just done, so it is a super important keyboard shortcut to know. Now, the next important keyboard shortcut is the split. So down here you have the normal edit tool. This is where you're going to live. These are different editing tools you can have. You will recognize the name of these tools from other editing softwares. But with the normal editing tool in Vegas, you can actually do a lot more than just normal edits. So first off, with this, you can split a track. So just hitting S where you have your cursor will split a track, and you can grab it right here and just move it around anywhere. You can move it up, you can move it up video tracks and layers. You can layer things, and when you slam tracks into each other, whatever is highlighted will move. So if your audio is highlighted, your audio will move, and if your video is highlighted, your video will move. And if you have them both highlighted, they'll both move, and if they're grouped, they'll always move together. And we already talked about how to ungroup things. So you can push them together to an auto crossfade, or with the normal edit tool, you can actually grab the corner of every clip and add a fade. You can change this fade by right-clicking and checking the fade type. You can change what kind of fade it is. You can even change the kind of auto fade that it is when you slam the clips together. So that is a lot of tools that are available right here from the start without doing anything special. So now you know your basic cuts and fades, and you know your basic movement in the timeline. Notice that Vegas is a very timeline-centric editor. It's not meant to do a lot of out-of-timeline things. You're meant to put it right in the timeline and get it the way you want it right here. And so that's why I love it so much. This picture-in-picture is just an effect that comes on this track already. We're going to talk about effects in a second, but for now just delete it because it's something that you can create yourself all you want to, but it's just going to confuse you right from the start. So I do want to note a couple of things about audio. There are two main ways to change the volume. You can increase the volume here or decrease the volume here. You can also change the pan for that track. I have more detailed tutorials about that. I have more detailed tutorials about all this stuff, but this is just a quick start guide. You can also change the gain per individual clips of audio by just grabbing this little section right here with the normal edit tool and pulling the gain down. Now notice too that'll also change. You're changing the gain when you do a fade. You can do an audio fade as well as a video fade just by grabbing the corners. So the next thing is about adding transitions and effects. So when you're adding audio effects, you can right click and add an effect, or you can just hit this little effect button. And when you do that, you can hit all and see all the different audio effects that you can add, which include EQ effects, volume effects, wave hammer, stutter, reverb, all sorts of great and useful things, pitch shift, things like that. And you can add all of these effects, and you can add them in a chain, which means they add in order. So if you do a pitch shift and then an EQ, you'll be EQing your pitch shift audio. If you do an EQ first, and you can just move the chain, EQ, then pitch shift, you EQ your audio and then pitch shift it. So that's the order in which the effects happen in this event chain. You can have up to 32 events in any event chain. So you can add these to the clip itself, or you can add it to the track itself. This is the hamburger menu. It's got your extra things. And with the track itself, it comes with these track EQ, track noise gate, and track compressor already on it, but they're empty. There are no compressors or track EQs and only a very small noise gate already on every single audio track. If you unclick any effect in an event chain, this is another event chain, whether it's on the clip itself or whether it's on the track itself, you will bypass that, so it does not exist to the project if it's unclicked. So this is how you can toggle hearing it with or without an effect. And again, I didn't actually add it. If you add the effect and hit OK, it'll pull up any of the windows, and the windows all have presets. So the presets are things that you can just select something that's been done for you, and you can actually make your own presets by naming it something and then hitting the save button. And this is save icon. That'll save your preset and allow you to access all your exact settings again on anything. You can also do the same thing with video effects. You can hit that button and add video effects here. You can also go to the video effects tab for video effects, and this is great. So with audio effects, you can't see what you're doing until you're doing it, but with video effects, you can actually come in here and you can search for your effects or search for them by the kind of effect they are, and you can even create a favorite and favorite something. Like if you use Bezier masking a lot, you can go to your favorites, and then Bezier masking will be in your favorites, and you can find the common effects you use very quickly. So you can see all your effects in the All plugin, and then there's a ton of different effects here, and all you have to do with any of these is grab it and throw it onto a clip or the track or the project itself. So if you throw it on a clip, it just affects the clip. So this clip's black and white, but this one isn't. And see, you can see the event chain here, and you can see your ability to affect that effect with any of the possible effects. Another note, anything you see a clock by is something that you can animate, and that's very important. Animating is something you can use anytime. You can use keyframes to move something around. It's got a clock by it. Very big, very important thing for Vegas. A lot of things can be animated very easily in Vegas with keyframes and that animation button. Keep that in mind. Again, you're not going to learn all this at once. Don't be intimidated. It's a new software to you. I just want you to kind of know where these things are. Now, if you add the black and white to this video track, you add it to everything on the video track. So essentially you're black and whiting this one twice, and this one's just black and white once, but you're adding it to it again. If you want to do a composite, you can actually just go to your compositing mode and change the compositing mode, which with black and white, that's not going to be a very interesting multiply mask. But I just want you to know that source alpha is the base, and you can change to multiply mask for your compositing mode very easily there. Another thing that is super needed is your event pan crop. Your event pan crop button, you can always get to it right here or by right clicking. But you can hit event pan crop, and then here is where you can change your zoom on your video very easily. You can also, if you unlock these, you can change your letterboxing as well. So this is obviously something that you're going to be using a lot. This is how you can restore or center or flip vertical, any all these things that you might want to match. Output aspect ratio might be a very important thing for you, but these kinds of things are something you can do, and you can keyframe all of this. So this is your keyframing ability. Super rough explanation here of your keyframe ability is when you add a keyframe, you can do anything you want. Like let's say we just zoom in a lot, and then if you watch this clip over time, now you can see that it's going to zoom in over time, and I even have the bars cropping, and it will slowly crop the bars on the clip. So that is what I'm having it do over time, and I can create as many keyframes as I want in the event pan crop area. You can always lock this back if you don't want to mess with letterboxing, or you like the amount of letterboxing that you have. And you can also create presets with this, where if you do any kind of special thing, you can name it and save it right there and call it back for any single thing. Another very important thing to note as a new editor in Vegas, if you make a change on the timeline and you want that change to ripple, for example, let's say you left a little bit of black at the beginning and you don't want the black to be there. If you move this, then you create a new problem, and you have to move every single clip down the line. Auto ripple is a way to fix that. Oh, this is snapping, by the way. Whenever you touch something to another clip, you'll see that blue. That means that it is frame to frame snapped together. When you zoom in with the mouse wheel is how you zoom in and out. When you zoom in with the mouse wheel, you can see that it is frame to frame attached. So if I want to move this, I can go down here. There's a button called Auto Ripple, and you can actually change how much this affects. Right now it's just the affected tracks, but you can actually make it do everything all the time. If Auto Ripple is on, it'll be highlighted blue, and you can move it and move everything behind it. And that includes if you delete something. Now, another important thing too is you can actually trim events by just grabbing the side right there with the normal edit tool and pulling it back. When you trim events, it makes it shorter. It's as if you're just hitting S and delete when you're trimming events, but you can trim it frame by frame. A very simple way to do another common edit, and that can happen with the normal edit tool. So that is your very most common edits that you use with Vegas. If you have any crossfade or anything, you can just add a transition to it by going to your transitions tab and going to any kind of transition you want, grabbing it, throwing it on that right there, and then you will see a transition. Now notice that I've got layers and layers of effects. If things start slowing down, you can actually decompose your software by going to Draft, and auto, and it will automatically kind of make things easier on your computer to render while letting you see a slightly crappier version of the video. That happens up here at the preview window. So the next thing you want to do is adding text. Is just go to a layer above whatever video you want to add text on and go to titles and text. You can grab the sample text right here and throw it above anything, and then you can make your text appear here. You can grab it and move it around in the preview window wherever you want it. You can change the font size, boldness, typeface. You can change what version of the font it is. You can change the text color. You can animate anything. Remember, you can animate anything. This color can change over time. Anything with a clock by it. You can change the size with scale or the font type. You can change where the anchor point is. You can change the background color. For example, so think about this. The background color is now red, but it's transparent. So if I take away the transparency and then I go to this and I add transparency, now I can see through the text because the text is now transparent. So that's the kinds of things you can do in the text editor. Also, you can change your track spacing, your line spacing. You can keyframe any of these things. You can add an outline or a shadow, and you can keyframe any of these things too, meaning you can have a light source move and your shadow can keyframe move behind it. All sorts of powerful things. You can save any of these as a preset. Now notice too, it comes with a lot of text presets, and you can easily add an animation, one of those preset animations, by just popping this little animation on it right here. So for example, I just added an animation to it where I have it kind of come together and come apart. It's called drop split, where it drops down and then splits apart. I added that by simply selecting this drop split animation. And one of the things that makes 17 so cool is all these new titles 1 through 25 are all really neat new modern titles that have really cool animations, ins and outs. Again, if you're seeing any kind of bog with your computer, you can always go here to draft. Now, one thing to note too, if you're new to it, you probably haven't gone to your preferences, and to make sure that it's using your GPU for video acceleration. So that's something it can do, especially, and you can get right from timeline acceleration for all AMD, Intel, and NVIDIA stuff for any AVC or HEVC codec on the timeline. I'm not getting it for mine because this is an XAVC and isn't necessarily going to see that straight from timeline acceleration that you would see otherwise. Another thing that you're going to want is your color correction tools. If you hit this color grading, you're actually adding a color grading effect in the effect chain. So if you see there's no effect, this is blue. If there's an effect, this is highlighted. If there's no effect, this isn't highlighted. If you hit this button right here, it's now highlighted because you've added the effect. That effect is, let's take a look, is called color grading, and you can only do it in this color grading panel. Now Alt-G is a keyboard shortcut to make this come and go, but you can also get it with this button right here. In this color grading panel, if you have a clip selected, then you can change the lift, gamma, gain, and offset, your mids and lows and highs, your reds, greens, and blue, auto color balance, any of those things right there. They're all available with this software. So another common question is, where is motion tracking? Motion tracking is in Bezier masking. If you add that effect to your effect chain, it is in the general options. You can, in the masking options, you can actually track the motion. I have a more detailed tutorial about this. I just want you to know that's where your motion tracking is. A lot of people will go to this thing called track motion. That's actually just an event pan crop window for your entire track, which means you can flip, move, keyframe your entire track, which involves every clip in it, with the same event pan crop tools that you see in this kind of event pan crop window for that individual clip. You can add an effect to your entire project by just throwing it on the preview window itself and then every single clip and layer will be affected by this when you have an actual video output effect on your video. This is your video output effect project chain. This is all controlled by your preview window. So if you add or remove things from the preview window, that adds or removes effects from the entire project. You can add these effects as well by hitting this effects button. Important things to note: you can turn on and off your title safe area or your grid for if you're doing any kind of graphic design just by this button right here. This takes a snapshot, creates an image, and then you can find that image in your project media and use it immediately in your project. If you're rendering something, go ahead and grab what you're going to render with your loop region. You can do that up here above the timeline. Grab what you're going to render and go to Project, Render As, and go to your render options. So if you're going for YouTube, you're going to want this Magix AVC AAC, and then select your frame rate and your, if desired, output pixels. And you need to select render loop region only. That is what we just selected down here. If render loop region only selected and you get this, you can even favorite it if you're going to use it again. It's another important thing to note: this uses your processor. If it says AMD, NVIDIA, or Intel, it's using a graphics accelerator to render it. So that's something that you can toggle on and off just by selecting not the non-AMD or the non-Intel or the non-NVIDIA version. So then you can select that and then name it anything you want, choose where it's going to output the file, and hit render, and then you're going to have a file. Now, important thing to note, it will render it as whatever resolution quality you have selected in your project settings. So it's important before you get started to hit your project settings and go to best to make sure that you always have the best quality render, and then hit start all new projects with these settings. Hit apply and OK. If to scrub through video, you can grab it here and scrub through it. You can use your JK and L keys to scrub through it. You can also use this rate thing down here to scrub through it, or change the rate you're watching it. That will not change the rate it renders out. Slow motion is if you hold control and that speeds it up, and pulling it further out stretches it, that slows it down. That's basic slow motion. You can have more advanced slow motion and the slow motion effect. And that's the basics of Movie Studio 17 Platinum. If you are already an editor, again, if you're a beginner, this probably went way too fast. You would like you to go to the beginner editing thing where I talk about all of this stuff in so much more detail to help you get started. I have lots more tutorials that go in much granular detail about all of these things. So thank you so much for watching. Like if this video helped you out. Subscribe if you're looking for more. If you purchase this software through my affiliates link, that helps me out a ton and lets me make more tutorials for this software and about video editing in general. So thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.